Gary Oldman is here. He exploded onto the movie scene in the 1980s with his portrayals of punk rocker Sid Vicious in Sid and Nancy and playwright Joe Orton in Prick Up Your Ears. Roger Ebert called him the best young British actor around. In recent years, he has appeared as Sirius Black in the Harry Potter films and Commissioner Gordon in Christopher Nolan's Batman trilogy. In a new movie, Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, he takes on the role of one of literature's greatest spies, George Smiley. The film adaptation of John le Carré's 1974 espionage novel is the first since Alec Guinness's iconic portrayal of Smiley in the BBC miniseries version in 1979.
But perhaps what you actually did, and forgot to tell us about, was to burn the British passports you obtained for Mrs. Poole and Miss Danny Poole, but kept your own to convince Carla's footpads you thought it was still safe. Then, probably, you made travel bookings in the name of the Poole family for the same reason. You doctored the Swiss passports for Danny and her mother and made other arrangements for them, like staying in Marseille, perhaps. Prince.
And here is the trailer for Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy.
There is a mole right at the top of British intelligence. He's been there for years.
For 25 years, we've been the only thing standing between Moscow and the Third World War.
I'm retired. You're outside the family. You're well placed to look into this press now. I'll do my utmost.
I know that it is one of these men. All I want from you is one code name. Tinker. Tailor. Soldier. Spy.
I need you to do something.
Going to have to send you up into the lion's den. If you're caught,
What the hell are you doing up here?
can't mention me.
I know who you are. I have something to trade. Something big.
she told me a secret.
The mother of all secrets.
She had information concerning a double agent.
You have to assume they're watching you.
Things aren't always what they seem.
It's become so ugly.
We're not so very different, you and I. We're both looking for the weaknesses in one another.
I am pleased to have Gary Oldman back at this table. Welcome.
Thank you. It's nice to be.
It's my pleasure to have you back.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. It's been a good year for you.
It has been an extraordinary. It's been an extraordinary couple of years. With this project falling from the sky as it did. I was sitting in my kitchen in Los Angeles. Well, I was out of work, but I think actors refer to it as resting. I was resting between engagements, and the phone rang, and they said, "Would you like to play George Smiley in Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy?"
Yeah. And you said?
I was intrigued, and I dithered. I obviously knew the material, I knew the book. I had seen the original series in '79 with Alec Guinness, and it gave me pause for thought. They're enormous shoes to step into. He was, as you know, a knight of the realm,
Yes.
a much beloved actor, both in the theatre and the movies. And his portrayal of George Smiley is considered by many to have been the definitive performance. And he had a huge success with it. And it's a holy cow, Tinker Tailor, in the UK. And it's quite something to take on. I think we all of us, Peter Strawn, Bridget O'Connor, the writers, and Thomas Alfredson, the director, I think we all approached it with the same. We had the same jitters, because you're really putting yourself up for a fall if you can't pull it off.
And there's something called the Ghost of Guinness, I guess.
Yes, I mean, obviously there are comparisons to be made, and if you're a classical actor, let's say, and you are asked to play Lear or Hamlet or Willie Loman, Blanche Dubois, one of these sort of iconic figures of classical literature, you know, the inevitable comparisons are there. You are going to be measured against all the great Hamlets and all the great Lears that came before. But your canvas for something like Hamlet is very, very wide. It offers up, it invites you, it invites many interpretations. You can have a 19-year-old actor play Hamlet. You can have a 35-year-old actor play Hamlet. You can be mad. You can be sane. You can be angry. It lets you.
You can be modern. You can be historic.
You can be modern. You can. It's Low Chinese or it's Jacobean, Elizabethan, however you want to do it. With Le Carre, with Smiley, you can't futz too much and mess with the molecules. There's a DNA at work here, and I am, I think, inevitably going to arrive at the same destinations. Not all of them, but the same destination that Guinness arrived at.
What do you mean by destination?
Well, there are just certain character traits that Smiley has that you can't mess with, just for the sake of making it modern or different. So that bigger comparison, in a sense, was a dragon that I had to slay.
Now, I thought that also, in terms of reading about you, that what you had done was to, in a sense, understand that this George Smiley was a classic character, in the same way that Hamlet is a classic character.
Yeah.
And therefore, in someone that is a classic character, it lends itself to different interpretations because it will be performed by so many different actors.
But there's a motor. It's like a little wheel that's in Smiley. It's his running condition. There's a melancholy. There's a disenchantment. He's a disillusioned romantic. There's a sort of heaviness and a sadness to him that Guinness may have brought because he was older than me. Also, he was 70, nearly 70 when he played the role. But they are just innate characteristics about Smiley that you have to follow the signposts. They are there, and no matter excuse me, no matter how different you want to be, you're going to be led there, and I knew that going in, that they're not doing an impersonation, but you're following a man, you're following a great actor who has climbed the mountain and reached the peak and put his flag there and is sort of looking down saying, come on then. Yeah, you want to climb it? Yeah. There were ghosts and dragons in your head, as they invariably are. They're in your head, and I had to sort of walk through that fire and played a trick with myself. Exactly. I said, this is a classic role, and so and that's how I convinced myself to say yes.
In the book, John le Carré describes Smiley as follows: small, pudgy, at best middle-aged. He was by appearance one of London's meek, who do not inherit the earth.
Yeah.
His legs were short, his gait anything but agile, his dress costly, ill-fitting, and extremely wet.
There you are, right there. There's some of them. There's some of them right there. I am not all those things, but I think he can physically. The silhouette of Smiley, I think, can be many things. As you probably know, James Mason played him, a version of him.
Yes.
I think Anthony Hopkins,
yes.
Den O'Mellitt.
Yes.
So there have been a few. There have been a few Smileys.
This is what his wife said. She described him as a reptile that can regulate his body temperature. Quote, George is like a swift, Anne had once told Hayden, who was her lover, and in a hearing, he cuts down his body temperature till it's the same as the environment.
I have been quoting that passage for 3 months because of this, doing press for the movie and doing Q&As. And often the question I'm asked is, how do you begin to get into George? How do you start to create George? And the passage I have quoted again and again and again is that one.
So what does that passage mean to you?
That's the key to George. That's the whole physical key to George. That to me is. I've said this before. In my humble opinion, for me, acting is not intellectual. It's a sensation. It's a feeling, and that tells me so much about that man. That is not a man who is. There's very little ego there. He's not frenetic. He's not busy. There's a wonderful sort of stillness to Smiley, and that was the key that unlocked the door for me. How fitting that you quote that.
Is he also a man who, when Control, played brilliantly by John Hurt? More about him later. But that knew that he would get his man from the get-go.
I think there's no doubt.
I agree.
In his mind. There is no... The wonderful thing about Smiley is there's no sort of self-aggrandizement. There's no ego. He operates with moral certainty. Old values. He's of that generation, what they called the 39-45ers, was there with he sort of learned at the knee of Control. He is always 3 or 4 moves ahead of you. He is a master sort of manipulator of bureaucracy. He's like this table. He's
oak and strong.
He's oak and strong and reliable, and